Hello everybody, nice to see you again. My name is Vic Gilgers and this is a podcast, episode 32, and it's entitled Grievances Stop You Living Your Life. And what I mean by that is when you're caught up with a grievance, you're that much up in your head over what's aggrieved you, what's upset you, why things haven't gone your way, which should have gone your way. And you're up in your head about it all being, why should it have happened? It shouldn't have happened, etc., etc. So you're just not getting on with your life because you're taken out of your life. And that's what I mean by that, because all your energy is devoted into thinking about what's gone wrong, what's been done to you, and maybe looking now for solutions as to what you could do to put things right and right the wrongs, etc., etc. It's not very nice. And I must admit that I was certainly the king of grievances. There's no doubt about it. And that would cause me anger over things that had apparently upset me and put me on edge, probably gave me high blood pressure, but I'm okay now, honestly. And so what I want to do today, and it's quite simple really, the answer is that once this is kind of all this tension and this angst and this grievance issue that you've got is not going to be solved by bearing down on it like that and trying to work your way through it and look for other angles as to why it happened or how it couldn't have happened or how it should have gone and what you could do is basically that is the complete wrong way to look at it. In other words, go away from all this to, in actual fact, back to your kind of awareness, your being, your spirit. It knows what to do, and that's where the peace is. And so just handing it over to that, and I've done this, so it works. You become renewed, and you can get on with your life, because the other way, you're just stuck. And in actual fact, all you're puddling around in all this mire of stuff just makes matters worse. And I've got proof for that because I've been through it this way and that way, from the back to the front with grievances. It doesn't work when you are stuck with all that lot. So that is the answer, really, is just to go quiet to all this kind of stuff. And you'll get to know what to do, and you'll settle down. Your blood pressure will come down. Answers will come. You'll get to know what to do. And it's never as bad as it seems, because it is not what it seems anyway. Now, how did this particular episode 32 come to me? And the reason I'm saying this is that each week when I do one, and I can't always do one every week because you're thinking, well, what shall I do? But what seems to happen is that somehow I just get a clue. Something pops into my mind, or I look at something, or somebody will say something, or go to a meeting, or whatever. Life just presents something to me, and that says, and as it did this week, oh, Vic, do something on grievances, because you know a lot about grievances and you've suffered at the hands of grievances. And if you can do anything to help others get out of this. And there are other similar issues like lack of being able to forgive and upset over what others do. So it's all a related area, kind of feeling thwarted by life. And this is the whole thing, is that really we're taking seriously, as we see it, all the angst over it all with the grievance, that it's coming from the outside, and therefore we're trying to look what we can do to the outside, but it doesn't work like that, Basically, it's not outside in, it's inside out. And the answers come from the inside to be able to sort out this particular issue. And I'm not saying, let me get this right from the beginning, that grievances aren't valid. Things happen to people, and people do things to people that are not fair. That's true, and I can understand why I had a grievance, and I can understand why other people might have grievances about what's happened to them if something's happened that they don't like or they didn't want to happen and it shouldn't have happened and all the rest of it. But keeping stuck on that is not the way to do it, and that's what this is about. So I could a litany of grievances. Give you an example of what I mean by this. When I was a young man, I went to night class to study, and I did fairly well. And they sent me on what I would call it wasn't a degree. So I did my night class, and then I went on to a thing called a higher national diploma. So although it was full time, and I studied for 3 years, and my subject then was aeronautical engineering, because I worked for an aircraft company, which became British Aerospace eventually, and now is BAE Systems. But then in them days, it was Blackburn Aircraft, and then it went into Hawker Siddeley, and then it went into British Aerospace, and yeah. So so I was doing my night class, and I managed to get on this high national diploma, which was a 3-year full-time course. And I knew all my mates, and we all said on like the last day of term on night class, oh, we'll see you in September back at the college, you see. Fine. And I was dead chuffed, and my parents were chuffed that I was going to college. It wasn't a degree. It was like a poor man's degree, as I've said. But when I arrived on that Monday morning to start the course, there was 2 people missing that I knew. And I found out later that they'd been sent to do a degree. And what had happened was, at the company I worked for, their fathers, these 2 students, their fathers were senior managers at the company. And they'd place them somehow onto a degree course. So they'd done the night classes like I'd done, and then the parents had managed to manoeuvre things to get them onto a degree course at a different college, because the college I studied at, which was then in Humberside, East Yorkshire, didn't do degrees. So we did like a diploma. Well, that really got my goat. It really did. So, and what I did, I didn't take this laying down. I went back to the 2 particular bosses concerned and said, look, this is all wrong. In fact, I'd got better marks than them, and they knew that. And I said, look, why aren't I on a degree and your 2 lads are on degrees? And what I will say is it did not do me any good in the company, because these were senior managers, and I took my grievances to them. And I was quite, vociferous. I raised my voice. I was angry. Suffering from, I needed a course on anger management, believe me. So there's an example of what I consider to be a grievance. And so what I will, just carrying on further from that, is that with other issues, and I've had lots of grievances, I remember once thinking so much about a particular issue, driving the car, that I actually didn't see the car in front braking at some light, and I went right into the back of the car, bashed myself up a bit, scared the bejesus out of the driver in front of me. All ended okay, nobody in hospital and all the rest of it, but I did not see that coming, because my mind was not on traffic. And you're driving a car, which is a dangerous machine if you're not kind of got your wits about you. But it just shows that when you've got your mind on something else, you've not got your mind on what's in front of you in life. You're missing out on life. You're not attentive to life. You're not making the right decisions in life, because your mind's all tied up with this grievance or whatever it is. So it's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing. And so I'm hoping that in this podcast I can show you ways out of this, if you like that. Well, hopefully you're not. Just maybe it's me. I don't know. But let's face it. All of us get upset about something. And if we start modelling on it and kind of churning it over, we can tend to get in the states like that I've just described. Now, I'll start this off by saying, is it the person or the situation or your thoughts that upset you? And it is always your thoughts about the situation that upset you. I'm not saying that you haven't been upset by someone, but it is your thoughts about it, that you have thoughts about those thoughts and so on and so on. So the first thing it does is it strengthens the neural pathways in your brain connected to, your thought circuitry have got to go somewhere. It's like motorways. And the more you use a particular road, the more, it's like a path. You keep using that path, the weeds stop growing, it turns more into a bigger path. It turns into a blinking motorway in your mind. Your neural pathways are waiting for, oh yeah, it's Vic again doing his kind of grievance thing. So, oh yes, we know where we're going there. There's the motorway and I'm back on it again with all my grievances crashing into things. So that's the first thing, is that we're not doing ourselves any good by dwelling on that, because all it does is it's like, next episode, it's a continuance of all this. And another thing is, I don't think I wanted to plot revenge on anybody, given, like that first example. I would not have I did shout at the managers, which I shouldn't have done because it didn't do me any good. But that was the extent of my revenge. But some people, when they feel that they've got a grievance, want to take it out on the person or the situation that they think. In other words, there are lots of examples in the literature of where people, it's like being a stalker, have basically pursued someone else or pursued a situation and devoted their whole life. What a way to live. No, in other words, you can get that. Well, I'll read a little bit out of that again, because I did last week. I know the way you can get, and we can get like that. There's no doubt about it. So, yeah, we need to obviously set boundaries, because we can't let people walk all over us. And so I stated my position clear in that case with the managers and said, look, I don't want this happening to anybody else. I think that I've been treated unfairly. I am not a person that kind of keeps quiet about this type of thing, and I'm not going to be untreated fairly. The deal's been done. They've gone on the degree course. I've not, and I'm pissed off about it. But I let them know where I stand, and that's the best you can do. And then you can basically let it go. You've said your bit, so it is not as if in allowing a grievance to just continue, is you've set your boundaries, people know where you are, the fidelity of you is that you have let them know. Instead of, I could have said to myself, oh, don't go and complain to the managers because they're the bosses and they're affecting my career at the company. I didn't think twice. I never have done. No. If anybody crosses me like that, I'll let them know. So don't do it again, please. But what I'm not going to do is hold on to it. I'm not going to cling on to that grievance. Now then, when I was, and I've said that I've been the king of grievances, yes, I went on, I don't know what they would call the course, but it's like a well-being course. And I went into this room, and at the break time, this lady came up to me, older than me at the time, and she said to me, oh my God, she said, I've been looking at you and you look really haunted. You look really kind of possessed with anger about something or other, young man. And I said, well, I blinking well am, and I could tell you, I could list them off, And she says, calm down. She says, I can tell that you're kind of really cut up about life or what have you. And so I was kind of like, well, who are you and why have you come to talk to me? And she was basically a religious woman. And I thought, oh crikey, I've got a bit of a Bible basher here. Don't take this the wrong way, because I mean, I very much respect the Lord. But at that time, crikey, I thought this lady was trying to save my soul, because could see that I was a bit of a tortured soul, and she was correct. And what she did was, she said, "Will you allow me to say a prayer for you?" And I said, yes, okay, because I respected what she was doing. She was trying to help me, and that was a lovely thing for her to do. And this particular course, it was over a weekend, we didn't meet again until about 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. And then I met her again, and she said to me, "Oh, I've taken this prayer to my prayer group, and they've prayed for you to kind of assuage your anger issues as regards your grievances, so that you calm down and live a better life. And we've said a prayer, and you should be sorted." And I said to her, "Well, I'm not yet sorted." But I thanked her and appreciated what she'd done. And she'd also said at the time, you need to pray for yourself to kind of get this kind of thing off your shoulders. And I did do that. But I didn't feel as if it had gone off my shoulders. But one or two things happened was, at the first meeting, this lady had given me her Bible and said, "Please take this." Now, I'm not a Bible reader. I know bits out of the Bible, obviously, but when I took it home, I said to my wife, "Crikey, this is fantastic." She'd made lots of annotations in the Bible about stuff that was important to her. And so this was really a prized possession of this woman. And she had been good enough and kind enough and helpful enough and concerned enough to give something that was very precious to her and give it to me. Well, of course, next time I did see her, which I've mentioned, I did see her again, I thanked her and gave her a Bible back. And that was, to me, that, in other words, I did think that a lot of my issues started to drift away, and something had happened, and maybe it was the prayers, maybe it wasn't. But in my mind, what had happened was that I saw somebody else trying to help me, trying to be kind and compassionate, and that really lifted my spirits, because at that time I thought like the world was against me, I suppose, or certain people were against me. And I thought, well, no, there are other people that are not like that, who are trying to help. And this woman, in giving me her most valuable possession, which was a Bible, I thought that was absolutely wonderful. And that turned a corner for me. It certainly did. Now, I want to kind of look at why grievances upset us in the first place. They cause psychological pain. And to my mind, they cause psychological pain because the you that we think we are, I'm me, you're you, has been thwarted. In other words, the you that you think you are, your personality, your upbringing, your background, your parenting, your education, takes a particular stance, and it wants particular things. And when it doesn't get those particular things, it's upsetting you. And so naturally, you feel aggrieved. It's only natural. What you are has been dished, had mud thrown over it. Now, that causes, as I've said, psychological pain. One way around this, and this is going quite a bit deeper, I suppose, is that when we start realising that we are not our personality, we are not the you that we think we are something behind that. We are a real self. That is the self we refer to that gets upset is our conditioned self. And so when you realise and start to see more and more that you have a real self, a higher self, whatever you want to call it, a presence, just can't be affected by things like that. And you can get quite kind of helped. Well, that is the answer, is that when you kind of move away from your ego thoughts, then you start to see much clearly. Because what is happening, and I've done this thing before, it's like the snow globe. I don't know how well you can see this, but there's a little clown inside there. You can still see it. But when you do that, what it's seeing, you can't see clearly this is a metaphor, you can't see clearly the middle of the snow globe because there's like a blizzard going on there. And that's like a blizzard in your mind. So you've not got clarity. When you let it settle, and now you don't work at it, you don't kind of please settle. That's all this. You just leave it alone. When you leave it alone, it naturally settles. So there's no hard work to do here. There's no willpower. It is backing off from it, leaving it alone, it settles, and you get clarity. Now, this is the secret, is that when you get clarity, you start to know what to do about life, the situation you're in, and the grievances that you have been otherwise, kind of in this blizzard mind, as it were. And you can't see clearly when it's like that. So, I didn't really see this ego thing. Well, I understood it intellectually, but in the town where I live, Nottingham, I think they've still got it, a Notts TV, Nottingham TV. And for quite a number of years, they used to every now and then ask me to talk about happiness and well-being. And I did, I came on the thing. And it was televised. So I could go home and watch the telly box and see myself talking about well-being or something on this Notts TV. And it amazed me. When I looked at myself, I thought, that's not me. And I could see clearly what ego meant. My mannerisms, my upbringing, my slants on the way I took things, my prejudices, my preferences, my beliefs were all coming out there. I could see them. And I thought in that moment when I saw myself, I thought, that is not me. It's not me. And when you could, in other words, I'd had the opportunity to stand back from myself and see myself in a particular situation where somebody was asking me questions about X, Y, and Z, and I was coming up with my conditioned self answers to this. And I thought, oh my God, I get it now, that there is a me and then there's a real me. So we often get stuck in who we think we are, getting upset and grievances, but that is not, in other words, we are at peace, we are okay, and we do have answers. But when we get involved in this blizzard that goes through here, we're on the wrong track. Now then, one thing that we can look at here is, and this is going back to Sydney Banks and his 3 principles, which is mind, consciousness and thought. So I've mentioned before that we have the ability to, the gift of thought, which does not get upset with what particular thoughts we have. But our ego, our kind of sensibilities, our thoughts get upset with particular thoughts that enter our mind because of situations that have arisen. And it is like a computer. We've got a computer there which has been programmed to say, well, this is what we want, and if we don't get what we want, we're going to be aggrieved. And so it runs it through the program, and something happens that you don't like, and the program says, oh, I don't like this, and I'm fed up about this, and my life's going pear-shaped, and what can I do about it, and that shouldn't have happened. And so got to remember that it is like rubbish in, rubbish out. It is just this. That cannot handle that type of thing. That's why it's psychological pain. Now, it doesn't mean to say I'm dissing or putting down intellect, because I've got some holidays coming up and I've got to plan for these holidays. So that's using my intellect. When I want to do anything, I've got to, well, even on the holidays, if I want to book a taxi, I've got to look at when the plane's going to take off. And then you've got to be at the airport 2 hours beforehand. So then you've got to say, well, how long does it get to the airport? And therefore I've got to book my taxi. And so that's using your intellect. I like cooking. And so if I'm preparing a meal for myself, then I've got to plan the meal. I've got to say, well, when do I put this on? When do I cook this? And prior to that, I've got to buy the ingredients. And that means, do I go shopping this morning or this, etc. So that's intellect. But when it comes to what is wisdom greater than intellect, see, we're trying to rely on intellect. And it can't do it when it comes to psychological things. It just cannot do it. In other words, if I said, kind of, how do you, like, move your hand like that? That's not intellectual. There's so, how does it happen? It just happens because we know. And this is knowing. We know what to do. An example I was given this morning, listening to a program, was, when you're learning to ride a bike, how do you know to get your balance? You don't think intellectually of how to do it. It just comes. It's natural. It's there. It's a gift that we have which just needs to be uncovered. When you realise that that is there, that's always in the background, that is the gift which is uncovered. It's uncovered when you basically... These are all the things that put covers over everything. So you cannot see the light because you've got this cover, that cover. I call it a transparency. We have transparencies of conditioning in our life that stop us seeing the light, that stop us basically getting to our wisdom and our knowing, which is always innately in us. Right, so let me see what I've got to say here. Consciousness, that's what I was talking about. Now, so I talked about thought, mind, consciousness and thought. And mind, by the way, is this intelligent energy that runs through everything. So that's our backstop. We've always got that. But often we're referring to this little mind instead of big mind, which is the universal energy. It's got intelligence. It keeps the planets in place. It's what makes the electrons go around atoms. There is a knowing, there is an intelligence that makes everything, work. It's not us that do it. It's not this intellect that does it. It is that at the basic level. So, consciousness. Our consciousness can go up and down. And what I'm saying is when it goes down, because we've got low consciousness, is because we're in the blizzard. We're our mind storm. Where we're all tied up in our thinking and we're looping, we're going over stuff, we're processing stuff, we've got thoughts about thoughts. It doesn't give us solutions. It just keeps us stuck. And we're losing sleep. Basically, we're losing friends because we're not very nice people when we're in a low level of consciousness. And the advice there is, don't try to make decisions from a low level of consciousness. And that's just what we try to do. What we do is when we're in the pits, as I call it, I've got these grievances, what can I do about it? So we bear down on it, lose a lot of willpower, a lot of energy. And it's just using energy wrongly because we're not using, we are blocking the energy of life that is always there, which will give us the answers. So when we're in a low level of consciousness, the blessing that we've got is that we know we're in a low level of consciousness because we feel terrible. We feel it's not a nice feeling. We're upset. We're angry. We are depressed. And so that is the signal to know stop doing that because it's not getting you anywhere. That is the feedback system we've got that nature gives us. It's like touching a hot stove. You take your hand away. So when you're in these worry thoughts, when you're in this low level of consciousness, you know that you're you know through, you just feel that things aren't right, is stop bearing down on it. Get out of the mind stuff. Stop listening to this computer. It's using it for other things. Use it for other things. So when you are in a higher level of consciousness, that's when your spirits rise. That's when you can see clearly. That's when knowing what to do comes to you. You just start to know what to do. It just comes to you. You could call it intuition. You could call it a knowing. I call it a knowing. It's as if someone tapped you on the shoulder, said, that's the way, not that way. And you do that from the clarity of mind. Now, what is the difference between a low level of consciousness and a high level of consciousness? Is consciousness is really just one thing. It's awareness. We are conscious. We are aware. Our presence is there, knowing. We can see, smell, hear, touch, feel, etc. It's an understanding that we can have a low level of consciousness because we're really not seeing the wood for the trees. When we stop trying to wrestle with this issue and trying to solve it, when we back off from it, as it were, zoom out of the detail, which is what we've got stuck in, we zoom back to what we are, to our real self, to our presence, to our awareness, which is always with us anyway. It's been with us from when we were born. But at the age of 2, we develop an ego. And what I would call, when you become an adult, it's like an adult's way of having the terrible twos. When we are have grievances, we are like an adult version of the terrible twos. Same thing. Once you start to see that, and through what I'm doing here, hopefully with the podcast, is giving you an understanding. And when you got that understanding, that at low level, well, in fact, the understanding is, oh, I feel terrible about all this. Stop, back off from this. Zoom away from all this detail. Get out of the detail. When you zoom back to yourself, it sees the bigger picture. It's always been seeing the bigger picture. It is always there. It is, the wisdom is always there. So what are you really doing there? You're keeping calm. Remember the old saying, keep calm. That was in the war years. Keep calm and carry on. Well, that's what it is. Keep calm, carry on. Be aware. Zoom out of the problem. Just be aware. You're there in life. Now, you see, I'm looking out to my window and I can see a blue sky and some fluffy clouds and a nice tree in my garden there. It is lovely. When I look out at that and when I look out at the back way. But the point is, you can never look out at beauty and appreciate beauty and nature and how wonderful it is when you're stuck in your mind with all your worry issues. You don't do that. And that's why people talk about mindfulness, because we're not mindful of that. We're kind of stuck in the little mind here. So what my advice is, I don't give advice, but what I'm trying to say is keep calm, keep present. Spirit knows what to do. Put your intellect, which is trying to deal with your grievances, put that on the back burner. And I think I've really nearly come to the end of this, except let me just have a look. Oh yeah. What does letting go of grievances do? Well, it frees your energy up, because your energy was tied up on your grievances. Now your energy is tied up, is less tied up, is back to life. And what you will find is it spares you on to overcome what is upsetting you, because life wants to overcome it, and it will let you know in the best possible way. And you're now not coming from a place of worry and grievance and upset. You come from a place of grace. You're coming from a place of presence. You're coming from a place of awareness. You're coming from a place of wisdom. And in that, you can, feel compassion for yourself. Because you know that what happened to you, you were innocent. You did at the time what you thought was the best thing to do. In other words, grievances, you can be kicking yourself up the backside. I should have done this instead of doing that. No, you did the best you could at the time. And this is what I know about what I'm saying about this understanding. When you've got an understanding that you were innocent, that you did what you thought was the right thing to do, then you have got this compassion, you've got this understanding, and also the understanding as to maybe why the outside world did what it did. And we have no control over that anyway. But in the case of, I can see now, in the case of these bosses, with that grievance issue earlier, that's probably what they would have wanted to have done for their sons. And the college was at a different place. And looking back, it did me a favour because I couldn't have afforded to live away. It enabled me to stay at home, and quite frankly, I'm pleased that I did the particular course on aeronautical engineering that I did, because it set me up for many things, and it was a brilliant course. And so, in a way, what I thought was bad luck turned out to be good luck, and that's the way life works. And if you look for how it can help you, it will help you. If you're resisting life all the time, then all you do is what I did at that time, was give myself high blood pressure. So let me just look at, I mentioned this last week, Hafiz, 14th century poet. And I read a bit of this, I'll read a little bit more. I know the way you can get. I know the way you can get when you have not had a drink of love. Your face hardens, your sweet muscles cramp. Children become concerned about a strange look that appears in your eyes, which even begins to worry your own mirror and nose. Squirrels and birds sense your sadness and call an important conference in a tall tree. They decide which secret code to chant to help your mind and soul. Even angels fear that brand of madness that arrays itself against the world and throws sharp stones and spears into the innocent and into oneself. Yes, that's what it does. You might rip apart every sentence your friends and teachers say, looking for hidden clauses. You might weigh every word on a scale like dead fish. You might pull out a ruler to measure from every angle in your darkness the beautiful dimensions of a heart you once trusted. I know the way you can get if you have not had a drink from love's hands. And isn't that wonderful? Because when we're stuck in grievances, we have not had a drink from love's hands. We are drinking from a sour pit of memories. In other words, old wine, stale stuff, thoughts about the past, not fresh, dead. When we're in that reference point is not helping us. It's a past reference point, it's dead, it's not helpful, it's hateful, it's grievances. When you come to the present moment, which we're always in actually, the reference point becomes now, becomes your presence. And that knows. And you free up your energy to be with that. And that is a good thing. So instead of having thought problems, we have just peace. That's what it gives us. So I'll close here just on relaxing into this body of ours, just sensing, relaxing, going right down through our body, right, scalp, eyes, cheeks, tongue, unclenching, just relaxing, going down, just settling. And that's a wonderful thing. Just like sat having a cup of tea, just being aware of life, just being aware of what's right in front of you at this very moment, which but for a thought about stuff is perfect. Just think about that. But for thinking, our present moment is always okay. So when we can just be with the present moment, just accepting what is in our field of vision, or sounds that we hear, or smells that may come to us, or sense of touch, just being, just sensing our body, just going right down through our body, relaxing, just being in with what is really us, our total presence, which is just pure awareness, which is what the universe is made of. Just energy, just awareness, but it's intelligent energy. And that's what you are linked with all the time. And that is lovely, because that can settle you. In this very moment, you are okay. You're fine. It is just nice to be like that. Without a thought, there's nothing wrong with the present moment. You are in full awareness. You are acknowledging your body for being there and doing all the things that it does without thought. It just gets on with it, using life energy. Sure enough, you've got this computer thing which plans your holidays and all the other things, plans your shopping, gets your ingredients for your meals. That's the intellect. The intellect is a servant, not the master. It's a servant to wisdom. And when you're in your presence and settled, it can take years off you in terms of being able to get clarity, being able to become settled, and even appreciating what this does for you and thanking it. How often does it get acknowledged? How often does your body get acknowledged? How often do you go there into presence? There's nothing wrong with thoughts in that sense, especially if they are lovely thoughts. You can go on a journey with your thoughts, but you can, it's like getting onto a train. So you're at the station, you get onto a train of thought, go somewhere, can be a very pleasant journey. And when you get off the train, you're always back at the station, you're back home. That's what's always there, that station in life. The trains can come and go. You don't have to get on them. The trains of thought. If you want to jump on a good one, be wary of jumping onto the bad ones. Now you know when not to get onto the bad ones, because the feeling is there. You know from your feeling what to do. Your senses are there. Your awareness is there. And now you've got this understanding. You now know where to look. And that helps you tremendously. And as I said, it's always when we zoom away back inside with ourselves, our presence, our okayness, our just being settled. And this is peace. This is what I think is said in the Bible, the peace that passes all understanding. And it passes all understanding because we cannot understand why it comes. It's beyond us. So why worry? Why worry? Because it's just there. It comes when we need it. It's difficult to come when we're stuck up here sometimes. So we can enjoy life in the sense of having confidence that we've always got this backstop of presence, awareness, intelligent energy that is always there, humming away like a cat purring in the background. So basically, I've relaxed you a bit. Come back into the room. Thank you for listening and watching, and I hope this has helped you, and I hope to see you again. Thank you very much.